Welcome to my channel, my friends. Today, I want to take you on a journey, an exciting journey that could completely change the way you think about life, money, and success. What I'm about to share is not just a story, it's a lesson that has transformed millions of lives, including my own. We're talking about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, one of the most influential books ever written on achieving financial freedom. Imagine this. You're a young boy or girl, growing up and observing the adults around you. One person says, study hard, get a good job, and save money. Another says, learn how money works, make it work for you, and build wealth. Two completely different perspectives. Which one would you choose? This was the reality for Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He had two father figures in his life, two men with very different beliefs. He called them his poor dad and his rich dad. Poor Dad was his biological father, a highly educated man with a stable job. He worked as a teacher and firmly believed that success came from studying hard, getting good grades, and climbing the corporate ladder. But despite his education, Poor Dad struggled financially. He lived paycheck to paycheck, constantly worried about bills, and believed that talking about money was inappropriate. Rich Dad, on the other hand, didn't have a high level of formal education. He didn't hold a prestigious degree or a government position, but he had something far more valuable: financial knowledge. Rich Dad owned businesses, made smart investments, and believed that financial education mattered more than traditional schooling. He used to say, "Don't work for money, make money work for you." Now imagine being a young boy like Robert, standing between these two men. Both are giving you advice, yet their messages couldn't be more different. Poor Dad said, "Get a secure job." Rich Dad said, "Create jobs for others." Poor Dad said, "Money is the root of all evil." Rich Dad said, "The lack of money is the root of all evil." At first, Robert felt confused. He respected and loved both of them, but he began noticing a pattern. Poor Dad, despite being intelligent, was always stressed about money. Rich Dad, even without formal education, seemed calm, confident, and financially secure. One day, Robert asked Rich Dad, "Why are you so confident about money?" Rich Dad smiled and replied, "Because I understand how it works. Most people don't. They spend their entire lives working for money, but never learn how to make money work for them." That one sentence changed Robert's life. It planted a seed of curiosity in his mind, a desire to learn, to understand, and to follow Rich Dad's path. Now, pause for a moment and think about this. Isn't this the reality for most of us? We're taught to go to school, get a good job, and save for retirement. But how often are we taught how to manage money, grow it, or break free from the cycle of working just to pay bills? Your mindset about money shapes your future. If you see money as something negative or intimidating, you'll always struggle with it. But if you view money as a tool, something you can control and grow, you unlock opportunities and freedom. Think about it. If you had two paths in front of you, one leading to financial struggle and the other to financial independence, wouldn't you want to know how to choose wisely? That's exactly what we're exploring today. As Rich Dad continued guiding Robert, each conversation opened his eyes a little more. One day, Rich Dad said something Robert would never forget: "The rich don't work for money." Robert was confused. "What do you mean? Isn't money the reason people work?" Rich Dad smiled and said, "No, Robert. The poor and middle class work for money, but the rich make money work for them. That's the difference." He went on to explain how most people live in a cycle, a trap he called the rat race. He said that when you're young, you go to school where you're told to study hard so you can get a good job. Once you get a job, you work hard to earn money. Then, with that money, you buy things like a house or a car. But those things come with expenses, mortgages, loans, taxes, maintenance. So you work even harder to pay for them, and the cycle never ends. Rich Dad paused and added, people think they're working for financial security, but in reality, they're working for their boss, the government, and the bank. The harder they work, the deeper they get stuck in this cycle. This is why so many people never escape the rat race. Imagine a man named John. John earns $3,000 a month. Then he gets a raise and starts earning $4,000. What does he do? He upgrades his lifestyle, buys a bigger house, a better car, maybe a new phone. His expenses increase along with his income. Instead of saving or investing, he continues spending. Now, he has to work even harder just to maintain his lifestyle. And the cycle continues. Robert nodded. He realized this was exactly how his poor dad lived. Then Rich Dad asked, do you know what financial freedom means? Robert shook his head. Rich Dad explained, financial freedom means having enough income from your investments or assets to cover your expenses. When you reach that point, you don't have to work unless you choose to. Your money works for you. He continued, people think being rich means having a high-paying job, but even someone earning a lot can be broke if their expenses are too high. True wealth comes from assets that generate income, not from a paycheck. Then Rich Dad shared a simple yet life-changing lesson about assets and liabilities. An asset is something that puts money into your pocket, even when you're not working. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. Let's look at two examples. Case 1. Buying a car. A young man saves $10,000 and buys a car. The car requires fuel, maintenance, and insurance. Over time, it loses value. This makes it a liability because it continuously drains money. Case 2. Investing in property. Another man saves the same $10,000 and buys a small piece of land. He rents it out for $200 per month. Over time, the land increases in value and continues generating income. This makes it an asset because it puts money into his pocket. Robert was amazed. He realized how often people confuse liabilities with assets. A house, a car, or expensive clothes may feel like wealth, but they don't produce income. Instead, they cost money. Rich Dad explained, the rich buy assets first. They invest in things that generate income, businesses, real estate, stocks, and even education to improve their skills. These investments create passive income. Once they have enough assets, they can afford luxuries without worrying about money. To make it even clearer, Rich Dad gave another example. Imagine two families, both earning $5,000 a month. Family A spends all their money on rent, food, and entertainment. By the end of the month, they have nothing left. Family B, however, spends only $4,000 and invests $1,000 in stocks. Over time, their investments grow, and they begin earning $500 a month in dividends. Eventually, that passive income becomes enough to cover their expenses. Family B becomes financially free, while Family A remains stuck in the rat race. At that moment, Robert began to understand something powerful. It's not about how much money you earn, but about how you manage it. Rich Dad told Robert that most people say, I can't afford it, but the wealthy ask, how can I afford it? This small shift in thinking creates a massive difference. He explained that when you say, I can't afford it, your mind shuts down. But when you ask, How can I afford it? Your brain begins searching for solutions. Rich Dad gave Robert a simple task. Whenever you want something but believe you can't afford it, write down 3 ways you could make it happen. Maybe you cut unnecessary expenses, start a side hustle, or learn a higher paying skill. This exercise trains your mind to think like the wealthy. Robert was still unsure about investing. He asked, "What if I lose my money?" Rich Dad smiled and said, "That's the difference between the rich and the poor. Poor people fear losing money, so they avoid risks. The wealthy understand that failure is part of learning. If you make a mistake, you don't quit, you learn and try again." Rich Dad then shared a step-by-step plan with Robert for building wealth, even with limited resources. 1. Track your spending. Write down everything you spend for a month and identify unnecessary costs you can reduce. 2. Start small. Begin with small investments, like stocks or a savings account that earns interest. 3. Learn daily. Read books, attend seminars, or find mentors who can teach you about money. 4. Build assets first. Focus on acquiring income-generating assets, like rental properties or a side business, before spending on luxuries. 5. Reinvest your earnings. Don't spend what your investments make, reinvest it to grow your wealth faster. As Robert followed Rich Dad's advice, he noticed a shift in his thinking. He no longer viewed money as something to spend right away. Instead, he saw it as a tool to generate more money. He began looking for investment opportunities, and slowly but surely, his mindset shifted from scarcity to abundance. Rich Dad's teachings were gradually transforming Robert's life, one step at a time. Robert's journey took another turn when Rich Dad said, "To become wealthy, you must first learn to control your emotions." This confused Robert. He asked, "What do emotions have to do with money?" Rich Dad smiled and replied, "Everything. Most people let fear and greed control their financial decisions, and those emotions keep them poor." He explained that fear keeps people stuck in jobs they dislike. They worry about not having enough money to pay bills, so they settle for a paycheck instead of taking risks to build wealth. This fear traps them in the rat race. Imagine someone who wants to start their own business, but never does. Why? Because they're afraid of failing, afraid of losing money, or afraid of being judged. So, instead of trying, they stay in a job that helps them survive, but never truly thrive. Rich Dad added, "The wealthy feel fear too, but they don't let it stop them. They understand fear is natural, but action is what matters. If you want to succeed, you must move forward despite the fear." He then talked about greed. Greed is another emotion that traps people. It makes them believe that more money will bring happiness. They think, "If I buy this car, I'll feel successful," or "If I own a bigger house, people will respect me." But these things only create more expenses and stress. He continued, "True happiness doesn't come from owning things. It comes from freedom. The freedom to do what you love and spend time with the people you care about. And that freedom comes from building assets, not spending on unnecessary things." Rich Dad told Robert, "If you want to control your emotions, you need knowledge." Most people fear money because they don't understand it. They avoid investing because they don't know how. They overpay taxes because they don't understand the system. And they stay poor because they don't know how to grow wealth. He encouraged Robert to start learning about 3 key areas: investments, taxes, and the market. Investments, understanding stocks, real estate, and other ways to grow money. Taxes, learning how wealthy people legally reduce taxes using smart strategies. The market, knowing when to buy and when to sell. Rich Dad emphasized, the more you learn, the less fear you'll have. Knowledge gives you control over your fears. One of Rich Dad's most powerful lessons was about changing your perspective on money. He told Robert, stop thinking like a consumer. Start thinking like an investor. For example, imagine you earn $1,000. A consumer spends it on clothes, gadgets, or entertainment. An investor asks, how can I use this $1,000 to make more money? They might invest in stocks, start a small business, or take a course to learn a valuable skill. Over time, the investor's money grows, while the consumer's money disappears. Rich Dad also taught Robert how to recognize opportunities others overlook. He said, most people miss opportunities because they're too busy working or spending. The wealthy are always searching for ways to grow. He gave Robert an exercise. When you walk down the street, don't just look at shops. Ask yourself, how could I own one of these? What does this business need to succeed? Train your mind to think like an owner, not just a customer. As Robert practiced this, he realized the world was full of opportunities: a small cafe for sale, an old house that could be renovated and rented, or even a website idea that could turn into a business. But as he began applying these lessons, he faced criticism from others. People told him, you're too young to invest, or that's too risky. Even his poor dad advised him to focus on a secure job instead of chasing dreams. Rich Dad told Robert, people will always criticize what they don't understand. They speak from their own fears, not yours. If you listen to them, you'll end up like them, stuck in the rat race. He encouraged Robert to stay focused and surround himself with people who believed in growth and success. Rich Dad also said, you don't need to start big. Small wins are the best way to build confidence. He shared the story of a young woman who wanted to invest, but only had $50. Instead of waiting, she started small by buying shares of smaller companies. Over time, her investments grew, and so did her confidence. Success is built step by step. Every small win gives you the courage to aim higher. Rich Dad also highlighted the importance of daily habits in building wealth. He told Robert, your habits shape your future. If you save and invest a little each month, it will grow over time. But if you spend everything you earn, you'll stay stuck. He suggested 2 simple habits. First, pay yourself. First, set aside a portion of your income for savings or investments before paying any bills. Second, track your progress. Keep a record of your financial growth. Seeing progress will motivate you to continue. Rich Dad warned Robert about a common mistake: impatience. Most people quit because they don't see results quickly. They expect to get rich overnight. But building wealth takes time, discipline, and consistency. He compared it to planting a seed. You don't see results immediately. You have to water it, protect it, and wait. Over time, it grows into a strong tree that produces fruit for years. Wealth works the same way. He added, money is just a tool, not the goal. The goal is freedom. The freedom to live life on your terms, follow your passions, and help others. Robert left that day more inspired than ever. He was determined to break free from the rat race, build assets, and create the life he had always dreamed of. After many lessons, one day Rich Dad said, now, you're ready for the most important truth about becoming wealthy. Success is not about luck or talent. It's about mindset, hard work, and taking action. Robert leaned closer, eager to hear more. Rich Dad explained, many people dream of becoming rich, but very few take action. They wait for the perfect time, the perfect opportunity, or the perfect idea. But the truth is, there is no perfect time. The best time to start is now. He gave an example. Imagine two friends. One says, I'll start saving and investing when I earn more. The other starts small, saving just $10 a week. 10 years later, the second friend has built wealth, while the first is still waiting. Rich Dad continued, opportunities are everywhere, but only those who act on them see results. Don't wait until you feel ready, start with what you have. He also taught Robert that failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of the journey. Every successful person has failed many times. He shared a story about a businessman who started 5 companies, and all of them failed. People laughed at him and called him foolish, but he didn't quit. On his 6th attempt, he built a highly successful company that changed his life. Rich Dad smiled and asked, do you think he would have succeeded if he had quit after his first failure? He emphasized the importance of self-discipline in achieving financial freedom. It's easy to spend money, but it takes discipline to save and invest it. Always pay yourself first, even if you have bills or debts. Set aside a portion of your income for savings or investments before spending anything else. Rich Dad explained that this habit forces you to become more creative and resourceful with the remaining money. It also builds the discipline needed to grow wealth. He noticed that many people let doubt stop them from chasing their dreams. He told Robert, your thoughts create your reality. If you focus on your fears, you'll find reasons to fail. But if you focus on your dreams, you'll find ways to succeed. As their lessons came to an end, Rich Dad shared one final, surprising piece of advice. The richest people are those who give back. Robert was confused. How does giving make you richer? Rich Dad explained, when you help others, you create value. Whether it's sharing knowledge, mentoring someone, or donating to a cause, giving multiplies your success. It brings fulfillment and strengthens your network, which often leads to even greater opportunities. He told Robert a story about a wealthy man who started a scholarship fund for underprivileged students. Not only did it change hundreds of lives, but it also brought him joy and recognition, opening doors to new partnerships and businesses. Rich Dad's final lesson was simple yet powerful. The moment you stop learning, you stop growing. Years later, Robert looked back on his journey and realized how much his life had changed. He had built wealth, not just financially, but in freedom, confidence, and the ability to help others. Robert shared this message. No matter where you are in life, you have the power to change your future. It doesn't matter if you're starting with nothing. What matters is your mindset and your willingness to take action. Wealth is not just about money. It's about creating a life where you can follow your passions, help others, and live without regrets. As you reach the end of this story, remember your journey to financial freedom begins today. Start small, stay consistent, learn from your failures, dream big, and never, ever give up, because the only limit to your success is the one you place on yourself. The world is full of opportunities, waiting for you to take that first step. Your time is now. Make it count.